Here is a quick preview about goal setting and decision making. Whether you're making a decision in the immediate or you're making a goal for the long term, you need to have a sense of purpose. And you'll notice that a lot of the conversation will revolve around careers, but this is true of any kind of decision or goal that you might have for yourself. When you're looking at the idea of purpose and passion, you can replace the word passion with motivation. You really need to understand what drives you and why something is important to you or lacks relevance or meaning to you. And that will really help you understand that sense of purpose and why you do or don't want to do the tasks that you're setting out to do. When you're looking at a career, you might have heard, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And the whole rationale behind that is a sense of purpose. When you really find that career, profession, field that makes you feel satisfied, that makes you feel accomplished, that makes you feel that you're providing some kind of service to the world around you, whatever that passion or motivation is for you, then you'll find that it doesn't seem like a chore. It doesn't seem like a labor or a burden to be in your profession. So when you do what you love, you can replace that again with do what's your passion or do what motivates you, and it will come out with the same result. We're going to talk a lot about personal responsibility, and a big part of that is owning your choices and your decisions. Unfortunately, a lot of people make decisions impulsively, and that eliminates the time frame to consider options and alternatives. So you have to live with the decisions that you make. It's important to understand again that you own those choices and the outcomes of those choices, and that you don't blame other people or you don't make excuses, but rather examine those choices if they didn't come out with the outcome that you wanted and say, why did that happen? How can I prevent this from happening in the future? When you're making decisions, you want to think about them in an organized manner. They should be systematic, methodical, they should have some logic and reason behind them, and they should be very well defined. But so should goals. And if you really think about it, goals are really the result of a series of decisions. If you've made good, thorough, well thought out decisions, they should lead to effective, well thought out goals. And if you do have to make modifications or be flexible or adaptable throughout the process, that is a sign that you've made a good decision or a good goal, because you can make those adjustments throughout and still come out with the goal or outcome that you intended on originally. Why do we talk about this? Well, it's important to understand all of the pieces and parts that help you get to your goal. We talk a lot about analyzing your strengths and weaknesses, being very aware of your skill set, your talents, what you bring to the table. We also want you to think about how those feed into setting your small, realistic goals. So how are those strengths and talents going to be challenged? What additional things do you need to do to get where you want to be? The only way you're going to know that is if you monitor your progress. And if you are tracking where you are in the process, you can better determine if you need to seek help and what kind of tools you might need or what kind of resources you might need to take advantage of. So when you're trying to reach your goals, you need to think about the choices that are involved and define them and create a plan. Good choices require review. Just like studying, You need to think about that whole information processing model of it's one thing to just read, it's one thing to do your homework, but you still have to distribute that practice and review for it to get into that long-term memory bank. So you need to examine them, dissect them, assess the results, determine, did I get where I want to be? Did I get here the way I wanted to get here? If I have to do it again in the future, would I do it the same way? Did you learn from your mistakes? And if you did learn from your mistakes, how can you change that game plan so if you're faced with it in the future, you won't have an issue? So when you're looking at the way that you make your choices to reach that success, think about the choices that you've made, the kind of outcomes that you want, the way that you perceive the situation and your attitude and the beliefs, whether they're positive or negative, and think about the kinds of effective behaviors that you have participated in to get you where you want to be. Regardless of the kind of model that you choose, and there's hundreds of them out there if you do a Google search, you want to think about a model about your goal setting process, so again it adds to that systematic methodical approach. Here are just two examples. One is the DAPS model, another is SMART goals, which is often used in corporate America, but you'll see that they all have the same elements. They want you to be as timely or dated as possible, being very specific, not, oh, I'll do it next week, or, oh, I'll get to it in a month or by the end of the year. Give a specific date. When you actually write it down and commit, you are more likely to actually complete that goal. Are you being realistic, action-oriented, and achievable? Or is this a goal that you can do with a reasonable amount of effort? Is it meaningful to you? Does it have relevance to you? Is it personal? When you have that sense of meaningfulness to you, you're more likely to stay motivated, stick with it, and persist to the end. Staying positive, again, that attitude and perception will also help you stick with it until you reach the final outcome. And finally, but most importantly, is that your goals have to be specific. If they're ill-defined, it's going to be difficult to monitor and track your progress because you won't exactly know what your goal is. So you want to make sure that there's a way for you to measure it, to assess it, to determine where you are in the process. Finally, this is one of my favorite quotes. A dream written down with a date becomes a goal. That means you've made commitment to it. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. There's that methodical, systematic way, that approach to taking things in chunks so that you can measure and assess them. The plan backed by action becomes achievement. And that means that you actually stuck to your plan, you actually behaved in the manner that helped you reach those goals, and that's what led you to success. So keep these things in mind throughout the semester. We'll get into more details about goals as we move forward.